There you go.
Good evening, everyone. This is Mel Boynton speaking from California, and thank you for taking your valuable time to be with us today on our UNA Advocacy Leads call. We have a very busy agenda. I hope you got it today from Rachel. Her message went out about 11 o'clock this morning, and we hope you all got it. We are going to give about 10 minutes each to our 5 agenda items, which includes an update from the Better World campaign and our congressional budget briefing book. Then our in-district reports is our second major bullet. Then upcoming webinars, which we're going to be conducting. And then fourth, leadership summit sessions that we'll also be conducting at the Leadership Summit. And then talk about last, our Leadership Summit advocacy moments. So about 10 minutes each, so watch your clocks and we'll get started. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Chris Watley, who's standing in for Micah Spangler today. And take it away, Chris.
Well, thank you, Mel, and thank you, everyone, for being on the line. And I'm really looking forward to the next agenda item on in-district report outs, because the informal reporting, the kind of anecdotes, emails, photos that are being shared with us over the 2 weeks of Easter recess, that was last week and the week before, have really been tremendous. And what we've tried to do in this update is for UNA USA and our partners, the Better World campaign, we've been trying to complement this push of grassroots advocacy, which we've been pushing out since the beginning of the year, digitally, physically, across the breadth of what we do at UNA USA. We've tried to complement that with kind of a grass top strategy that has played out at the beginning of this week. And I'll be honest, that grass top strategy has also benefited from a major event, which most of you have seen on the news, that was not our instigation, but that we are delighted has happened. And that's, quite frankly, if you didn't see it on the news, for the first time in my lifetime, every ambassador to the UN Security Council was welcomed to the White House as a result of Ambassador Haley's leadership, and had 2 hours with the president. That's, quite frankly, shocking that you have that much time allocated to the UN on the president's schedule. I can't think of anything other than, when the president's at the General Assembly itself, when that much of a presidential calendar would be occupied by the UN. So for those of us who've been deeply, deeply concerned and continue to be by the posture of this administration towards the UN more broadly and the numbers included in its skinny budget, I do find it incredibly encouraging that the president did take 2 hours of his time to welcome every member state of the Security Council and their spouses, to host them for lunch, to take them all into the Oval Office. I think that is an encouraging sign. Now, how we were able to capitalize on that moment, it was a bit of serendipity in that we did not foresee that when we started planning our efforts. But we had, meanwhile, been reaching out to every other living permanent representative to the United Nations from the United States. So every other living U.S. ambassador to the UN, we reached out to them to ask them to join us in a sign-on letter calling for continued U.S. leadership at the UN. And basically, other than President George H.W. Bush, who his team politely declined and said he just doesn't join sign-on letters for anything as a former president, and some others like John Bolton, who never got back to us, we got 9 U.S. ambassadors to the UN to sign on to a letter, and a great bipartisan group. Of course, Ambassador Power and Ambassador Rice, some of those who we know so well from the Obama administration, but also John Negroponte and other Republican leaders as well. So that dropped on Tuesday. We were pushing it out the door into the news cycle on Tuesday, and we actually got 2 of those ambassadors, Ambassador Albright and Ambassador Pickering, who's the head of our strategy council at UNA USA, to do a press call about the letter on Tuesday afternoon. And we had 12 reporters representing every major media outlet on that call, both major wire services, Reuters and AP, CNN, basically everyone who we'd hoped for, Wall Street Journal, some that, are more skeptical of the UN, and got some great coverage out of it. We also complemented it with a op-ed that we had drafted for Ambassador Pickering himself, and fortunately he had used his great personal relationship with Ambassador Negroponte to get Negroponte to co-sign it, and that editorial appeared in a paper that is really important in this town and particularly on Capitol Hill, but isn't known that much beyond it. It's called The Hill, and it's one of two newspapers that if you're a congressional staffer, you start every day by reading it because it's the inside baseball, kind of the horse race side of what's happening on the Hill and with legislative process in general. So their editorial appeared there. So between the letter of all of the living perm reps, save John Bolton and President George H.W. Bush, that op-ed in The Hill, a key publication for the Capitol Hill audience that we're here to focus on at a grass top level, and that press call, which then echoed out in wire service coverage and a lot of other coverage that really hit the message points we wanted, we were able to get out our message at that national leader level really well. And I'll be honest, we would not have gotten that level of coverage and play had the president not welcomed the Security Council to the White House the day before. So all these, we went from having 6 reporters confirmed on that call to having 12 reporters confirmed on that call in 24 hours as a result of that event. So that's all to say that this has been a good week in terms of getting the attention of the White House, thanks to Ambassador Haley's efforts, can't take credit for it, getting the attention of the press by having assets in place, by having spent weeks reaching out to the former U.S. ambassadors to the UN, both Republican and Democrat former ambassadors to the UN. And I think it sets us up well for what is our real mission, which is grassroots leadership, and what we will do on the Hill in June, and what all of you have been doing over the Easter recess. Now, the last thing I'll mention, just before I turn it over for either questions or our next agenda item, is we are still in a budget fight. That hasn't changed. The one thing that, those of you who are watching the news cycle and hearing about a possible government shutdown, it looks like there's going to be a 1-week extension kicked to May 5th. So we are still in that kind of, game of chicken, but that's largely over healthcare and tax reform, things that aren't in our wheelhouse. At least we aren't being singled out disproportionately in this kind of interim short-term fix. And if they do choose to kick it down down the field to the end of the fiscal year, that's a good thing, in that keeps the funding levels in place from the previous administration that we fought so hard for. And it means that we are in great shape to be on the Hill and make our case for fiscal year 2018 funding, the funding that starts October 1st, which those hearings will really be kicking into full gear when we arrive in June. And we know that we're going to be in the crosshairs at that moment. So luckily, we may be arriving with more numbers than ever before, after a more active period in district than ever before, and after a period of some good grass top effort. And the very, very last thing I'll mention is just our digital output that we set as a goal for ourselves. We have not been setting digital goals for number of emails, number of Twitter messages sent to members of Congress in previous years. We always encouraged our members to do it, but we never set a goal. We set a goal of 10,000 for the year at the beginning of this year. We are up over 15,000 as of today, and probably much higher than that. Our climate action petition that has gone out the door in advance of the March on Climate on Saturday, which some of us will be marching in under a UNA banner, including myself, has received upwards of 8,500 petition sign-ons. Our UN funding petition is over 1,000. All the action that we did at Members Day, the 2,000 actions that happened in that room, we are blowing the doors off of our expectations for digital engagement, and we're seeing it and hearing it. In fact, I was on the Hill just on Tuesday. Rachel and I both were supporting our Nothing But Nets campaign, our fellow UN Foundation colleagues, and I was meeting with a Republican member from the greater San Antonio area, or actually greater Houston area, and his staff member in this discussion about malaria stopped and said, you know what, we've been getting lots of calls about defunding UNFPA. And I know those calls are coming from us, and I know that outreach is coming from us. So we're having an impact. Fight's not over. It's not even close to over. But we're where we need to be. Let me pause there. Sorry for the long-winded response.
No, that's great, Chris. I'd like to get a report on our next item, the in-district reports, and then field some questions from our advocacy leads, and be prepared to identify yourself and ask your questions. So please do write your questions down and be ready to ask them shortly. Chris, you and Rachel, do you have any overall numbers on how many in-district meetings we've had? We've had so many really good ones, but numbers overall?
We don't, unfortunately. And well, you go ahead, Rachel.
I was going to say that I don't have them on me. We've been fielding those to Lauren. She's just holding all the emails in a folder, and then we're going to count them up. But I don't have that number on me tonight. I just know what you're getting is a lot of people reporting that they're having these meetings.
Well, I hope they're as helpful to others as they have been to me. I was particularly and specifically inspired by my Northern California colleagues when we did our in-districts with our senators and our local representatives as well. I would like to open up questions for the update and any statements you want to make about your in-district or questions about in-district as well. So please identify yourself, what your chapter name is, and make your statement or your question, please. Okay. We will take that silence as things in hand, and appreciating the completeness of the report that Chris and Rachel have given us. Rachel, what are the dates of our upcoming webinars?
Yes, so we are scheduled for 2 dates, May 30th at 8 p.m. and we'll get this in the announcement coming up for next week and get it up on the website. And then the second one will be June 6th at 4 p.m.
Okay.
And Mel, I think now is a good time. I know that you have some ideas of what you'd like to be covered in this webinar. I would love to hear from others so that we can make sure that we're properly preparing for it.
That's an excellent point, Rachel. I believe we had hoped that this webinar would bring our Leadership Summit attendees up to speed on the resources we have, the advocacy efforts we've made, and what we hope to accomplish at the Leadership Summit. And we want it general enough so that people that aren't attending the Leadership Summit get advocacy takeaways from it, but the people that are coming to Washington really come prepared if they pay attention to the webinar. I believe these are normally 1 hour. Is that correct, Rachel?
Yes.
And we will have a screen. When we say webinar, we have what is essentially a computer screen that is shared via the attendees.
Yes, so we've done a webinar, or Lauren has, our communications officer, has done a webinar for the communications committee that I really liked. So she's going to work with Micah to do a webinar where part of it will be taking individuals, taking screenshots of our website and helping them understand how to navigate the advocacy portion of our website. So that will be part of the call.
I think that's excellent. I think it's also important that we have several people who are now on this call, or should be, that is advocacy leads from different parts of the country and different types of chapters. I'd like to make sure we have, I'll happily participate, but I'd also like to have people who are from different regions and at least one genuine participant who can speak to the particular advocacy capabilities and favorite methods for students. And I think so that's going to be a very full hour if we have a BWC kickoff, and then we have the different types of representatives speak to their favorite parts. I think we should have an agenda that includes the different forms of advocacy, from in district and setting up meetings with your local representatives, to letters to the editor, to our email campaigns and our advocacy action alerts. These are all important pieces, and I think some of us are familiar with parts, but very few of us are actually quite familiar with all parts. And I would like anyone who attends either of these webinars to come away with an appreciation and clarity regarding our current resources. And I think we have some work to do. I was looking at the advocacy resources today, and the links are still pretty much saying 2016, although our recent alerts have included the 2017.
And Mel, did you share those? I don't recall receiving them. I know in a last call, everyone was going to send to us if they saw something that needs correction. I don't know if that went directly to Lauren already or.
No, I have not sent it specifically myself, but for example, the briefing book link under advocacy resources is 2016.
Yeah, that one I asked Lauren to update yesterday. So, and everyone, please keep in mind that it might take a little bit of time. We unfortunately lost Patrick. He got a really great job. So we're working on filling his job. So our updating will be a little bit slower. The foundation has been great to give us some of their resources, just to let you know.
Sorry, Rachel, who did we lose?
Patrick, our digital producer. Yeah.
Oh, he's a good one, so
yeah.
Good luck to him.
But I would definitely appreciate, I know the 2016 congressional briefing book needs to be placed on the website, so that has been communicated. But if there's anything else you see that we may have missed, I would love to get that information from you.
The issue papers are still almost all dated 2016 as well.
Okay.
I would like to ask for people who are right on this call now, do we have a genuine chapter lead on the call now that is willing to participate in the planning and execution of these webinars? Okay, we'll look around for one of those. I'm on the West Coast. Do we have Midwest or middle of the country or East Coast advocacy leads who would like to participate in this webinar?
Mel, this is Karen, and I've taken me off mute, and I'm sorry about the noise, but I did want to say that I spoke at the Georgetown campus chapter yesterday, and I'm sure I could find people there who would be willing to participate in helping to plan the webinars. And then one other thought is that we might encourage people to gather others from their chapter to watch it together, and then after the webinar have a conversation about what they can do with future and district meetings and letters to their Congress people.
I think that's excellent. We had one of those, our division meeting in Southern California 3 weeks ago. We put on a dog and pony show about advocacy, and it was very participative and very well received. So I think we've got the building blocks for it. It's just getting it out there, scheduling it, and making sure we spread the excitement. Anyone in the middle of the country that eager to participate in these webinars. That it's not going to be a big time commitment. You'd probably have 3 or 4 minutes of the actual webinar itself, but you would bring your geographic representation to the presentation.
Mel, hi, it's Jenny. I think Marcy's on the call with me, but I'm sure Montana, we've got 9 people now that would be interested in contributing something to this webinar, because that's the best way we reach out to each other is the internet.
I think that would be great. Karen, are you willing to also participate, or are you back on mute?
Well, I take myself off mute again. Yes, I'd be happy to help and participate in any way. Of course, I live in the colony and I don't have any voting representation in Congress, but there still may be things that I can do to help.
Just maybe.
Maybe.
I think that's a good starting crew if we can get a genuine rep to round out the crowd. If we have BWC is leading the parade, then the advocacy leads, Mel, Karen, and Jenny, and someone from Genuine or elsewhere, we can have a good representation, and we can divide up the topics among those advocacy leads, plus bring their specific geographic flavor to the conversation. Other suggestions about these webinars, is this a good plan? I really like Karen's idea about pushing this out as a potential for chapters to view, or at least part of the chapter to view, and then have a discussion on how their advocacy efforts can build on what they've learned.
Mel, this is Veronica from Rocky Mountain region. I'll check with the presidents and the chapter presidents in the region and see if anybody would like to be on the webinar and contribute. At this time, I don't have anyone, but I will check for you.
Okay,
and Veronica, this is Chris Wadley. I just want to say that the work you're doing with Donta is a fantastic example about magnifying our impact through work with partners. And also Jenny up there in Montana, heroic work. We've got to fill in the map, and you've transplanted from Pasadena and put all your passion into the upper Rocky Mountains, and we're so grateful for it.
Roger. Thanks.
Here. That's great. Our timing is, are there any further comments or questions about the webinars before we go on to our Leadership Summit planning?
Yeah, this is Herb from Northern California. Are the 2 webinars intended to have identical content, so that people are invited to do one or the other?
Yes, that was my intent, and that's why they're at different times of the day.
Right. Okay. Another point is that in some cases we don't know who is coming, who's signed up already to be at the annual meeting, and to remind them or reach out to them through, for example, the advocacy leads or chapter presidents to try to encourage them to be on the phone call, that might help. And it would also give us a chance to identify some other people who might be coming to the summit who might feel kind of excluded from these types of phone calls. For example, genuine people who signed up independently without being associated with a chapter. So could we possibly get the names of people who are from our state or our region or whatever it is, so we could have a better participation, or even rattle a few chains to get a couple more people who might even sign up to come to the summit?
Herb, when you say names, are you looking for a membership list or?
No, I'm looking for the people who've registered for the summit.
Oh.
We don't know who's coming necessarily.
Oh no, yeah,
from our
we
state or our
can
region.
share a registration list.
So that would be helpful for maybe most chapters to get it. Maybe they'll identify people who they didn't know were going, or they'll be able to chase up other people.
Okay.
Oh, that's a great
Thanks.
win-win. Excellent.
Thanks.
Any other comments or questions about the upcoming webinars? And we'll move on to the Leadership Summit sessions. We've got 2 agenda items regarding the Leadership Summit. The first is the sessions that are to be held, I believe, on Sunday, in the morning. And these are general preparatory, what are the resources. In a large way, I think this may be covering some of the same ground, but in person, that we've touched on in the webinars, but we'll be in person with much more interactivity. But again, our time frame, I believe, is 1 hour. Is that correct, Rachel?
It is.
And they're on Sunday morning, I believe, in quick succession. Are they at 10 and 11 or sometime like that?
9:50 to 10:50. That's correct. And in this one, we were talking today, we want to do some things like helping people to come up with stories as to why the UN is very important to them. So there will be some exercises that the attendees will do to make sure that their day on the Hill is more impactful.
Yeah, I think that's particularly helpful. I was very impressed with the new briefing book. I think instead of creating from whole cloth new pieces to update our older materials where we need them, often we can go directly to that briefing book. It's quite good. For example, I like the priorities page. That was clean and to the point. I think these are some of the materials. We don't have to reinvent these wheels.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And this is Karen. And we also have some excellent advocacy materials on our webpage, and we might just send the link out when we promote the webinars so that people can review those and benefit from them.
Yep.
Yes. The other comments or other suggestions regarding these training sessions? How many people do we expect to actually staff the front table at the summit sessions? Rachel, is this going to be Jordy and Micah and Mel, or is this going to be 5, or what do you think?
I have not talked with Micah about the actual breakdown of the session.
Okay.
First of all, I would say all the assumptions that we have about previous years, we're going to have to revisit. And that one of the great things is, as of today, after we removed some, kind of dubious or duplicate registrations from our list, we have over 400 people already registered for our annual meeting. And these are people who've paid something to come, all of them, so you feel like they're pretty solid as registrants. We'll have some fall off, but we'll also have a lot more people come through the door at the last minute. We're going to have big numbers. Honestly, Kathy Calvin, the UN Foundation president, called me into her office yesterday at 2:00. This summit is a key foundation priority. I've never had a individual meeting like that wasn't about something else. It was about just what UNA USA is doing in advocacy. We got a call today from the president of the General Assembly's office saying he's coming down, even though he will be our biggest keynote speaker who's confirmed as of right now. He's 2 days away from the UN Ocean Summit, which is his big platform for this year. You would think he would be kicking back and resting a bit, but he's going to come join us in part because Mel and the whole Southern Cal division showed him who we are when he came through Los Angeles on his way to his home in Fiji. He was the former permanent representative of Fiji to the UN before he became president of the General Assembly. So this is a big deal. We're going to have a lot of staff on site, and Rachel and I haven't had a chance to work through all the angles on it, but we're going to be pulling resources from throughout the foundation and our volunteer base and beyond.
Well, I just speak for myself, but since I am the chair, I guess my voice would carry some weight. I want to support what BWC thinks we need to be doing. I'm not trying to reinvent the advocacy agenda. I want to push hard with the tools that the UN Foundation, BWC, and UNA have been doing nationally, and make sure that that's interactive, that's exciting. The video and the material on screen is exciting to be a part of. That was part of what made our session good here in Southern California. We had a live feed from the internet, and we could go to videos of the new Secretary General. We could go to videos about peacekeeping. We could go to live resources for UN funding. And so I'm hopeful that it will include that, but in a framework that fits with BWC's plan for that time. Are there other questions or comments about this this precious time that we're trying to encourage every leadership summit attendee to attend? We've got 2 of them in quick succession, so no matter who they choose to go to on breakout, we want every attendee to have a chance to attend this hour-long advocacy training session on the first morning of the Leadership Summit.
This is Karen again. Just one quick question, and that is, will our packets include maybe 2 or 3 different sample letters that people could write when they go home? Sort of, I just returned from Washington and blah, blah, blah.
Good idea.
A little bit.
Yep.
Or just sort of several different paragraphs that people could cut and paste and modify to make it their own.
I think that's very important. Other comments or suggestions from other people on the call?
Karen, I would also, when you say the sample letter, is this going to the congressional office they just visited, or is it going to which office? Because I have a thought.
Right. Well, we could do 2 different kinds. I mean, and we could also do a sample letter to the editor that people could write for their local paper when they get home.
But what were you originally thinking?
I was originally thinking that it would be to actually all of the congressional office, the 2 senators and the representative, whether or not they met with them.
Okay, because I was thinking thank you letters. It was interesting when I was leading the group for Nothing But Nets this week on the Hill, and we were in Senator Warner's office. The staff liaison said over and over again to an individual who had met Senator Warner at an event. She said, "Did you write him? Did you write him?" She kept saying that. Did you tell him that you met him and this is how you felt about the discussion you had? And she kept pushing him to say, make sure you communicate with them. So I think it would be nice if people have a sample, something they can send and say, I visited your office, and kind of recap the message that we want to give them or ask or something. So.
Right. Well, I think that there could be 2 different kinds, and one if there was actually a visit, and then another. I was in D.C. Sorry, I didn't have time to stop by, but I think that as many contacts with Congress we can make, whether or not they were visits, and obviously it would be a different kind of letter, and depending on how the visit went, we may want to be able to say, I wish you'd change your mind on UN funding, or thank you for your support. So.
Yeah.
No, I think there's a role for analog writing that has resurged as of recently. I mean, it's always been there as a latent thing, but feedback like what Rachel received is a reminder of the power behind the ideas you're suggesting to her.
This is Herb. I have another kind of different idea. Maybe it goes back to the prior topic, too, and that is to be sure that there are people from red states who are indicating what they have been able to do to get in the door and get a message across and how it had a positive result, because a lot that should be on the webinar as well, so people know that it is not just the easy advocacy visits and letters and petitions and stuff that we need, but also the success stories where there's some challenges.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed Chris's move the needle analogy for all parts of the spectrum.
Yep.
Other questions or comments from people that haven't said anything yet? My wife has taught me that often the people that don't say a lot may have the most important thing to say.
You married well.
Hi, it's Dave Wiley in Lansing, Michigan chapter here. Chris, you've given us guidance before to keep a laser-like focus upon the funding for the UN and not wander off into other issues. But in this, if we do get a week or two long continuing resolution, to what extent are we going after decreasing the cuts in the international relations budget as a way of having a base within the State Department for making the UN payments?
Excellent question. And basically, to give you the short response is that we as the UN Foundation, and we've got to remind ourselves that UNA USA is a component of it. So all of us stand together with every aspect of the UN Foundation when we stand together as UNA USA. We are a significant component of the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, something called USGLC, which if you see coverage of 120 generals sending a letter to to congressional leadership saying that don't butcher the U.S. AID budget for the benefit of the Pentagon, that these two things have to travel together if we are going to have a safe, efficient, and effective national security posture. That's that U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, and we play a role in it. So when it comes to making the case for just the U.S. foreign assistance budget writ large, they're in the lead. We're a supporter. When it comes to disproportionate and specific cuts to UN funding, that coalition won't fight for us. We have to fight on our own. So it's one of those questions of we choose not to play a big public-facing role in just pushing back when the president talks about folding USAID into the State Department and cutting it back by a massive amount. In part because that's the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition's role, and we know we're with them and we support them. But we also have to keep our powder dry, because if for some reason the president backs off from that and says USAID is a decent thing, that maybe we'll have a 5% cut to U.S. foreign assistance, but it's going to remain a key part of the posture of the U.S. in the world. But the UN is something that he's deeply skeptical of, and he wants to really eviscerate specific voluntary contributions. We know that we will be singing solo in the choir. So for us, we have to really focus like a laser on, U.S. funding to the UN, as you mentioned. That is always our top tier priority. But also showing that there's a constituency for the Sustainable Development Goals, that there's a constituency for the role of the UN in the global refugee response. Our core asks. I hope I haven't gone way off the farm on that or been too discursive, but that's the background.
Right. Is there any indication that Lindsey Graham, who commented that the cuts of the State Department and aid were dead on arrival in the original Trump ask, that Graham is staying true to that in spite of his co-sponsoring of the Safeguard Israel Act?
All of the information I have, and we work very closely with Graham's staff, and in fact, the woman who was our principal contact on Graham's appropriation staff has recently left to go work for Nikki Haley at the UN. I view that as a really good thing, because she's smart. She's been on visits to peacekeeping missions that we've put together. She's seen the UN in action. The analysis that I have, or the insights that I have heard, is that when it comes to U.S. foreign assistance and the kind of function 150 in the federal budget, to get really wonky, that's the part of the federal budget that covers the State Department, the U.S. Agency for International Development, things that we care a lot about, that Lindsey Graham is solidly fighting for continued U.S. investments in that account and will continue to fight. So when he says that the president's budget is dead on arrival, that's what he's talking about. When it comes to specifically UN funding, we, of course, were desperately worried when he sponsored the Safeguard Israel Act. That has largely been parked since then. I think that he has been really impressed with Nikki Haley's leadership. That's a great thing. But I'll be honest, part of our Lindsey Graham strategy, and one that we're a bit proud of, is we've built 4 campus chapters in South Carolina over the last 6 to 8 weeks alone. Some of those are members who were with us at Members Day. And one of those members who was there, who asked like 5 different questions on Members Day, he got a little too much attention from on the day. He went back and got the president of the University of South Carolina, where Lindsey Graham is an alum, to invite the Secretary General to come down and deliver the commencement address. And we worked behind the scenes like crazy to get the Secretary General to accept that invitation. So the Secretary General will be down there in Columbia delivering that address, and we're looking to connect Lindsey Graham and him in South Carolina. I know that they met earlier this week when, or actually end of last week when the Secretary General was in town. So I feel guardedly optimistic about where we're going with Lindsey Graham in fighting for U.S. Leadership and diplomacy and foreign assistance on the 50,000-foot level, and also potentially staying where he has been historically in valuing the U.S.-UN relationship at that 30,000-foot level, a little bit below that. Sorry for the long response.
Okay, that's helpful, though. Thank you.
And thank you, Dave. We'll move to our last agenda item because we've got 15 minutes left till the hour. We don't have a BWC person on the line tonight, but we've got good channels to them with Chris and Rachel. We are hopeful of including advocacy moments. I'm guessing with the poor Wi-Fi connectivity of the NEA, we're going to either have to have these on screen that people can take in and either text on their phones when they have connectivity, they walk upstairs or they go outside at lunch or something. So I think we need to be strategic when people are going from an area where there's not a lot of connectivity to a place where there is, or if we can solve the problem of connectivity with a Wi-Fi network that works. We can have these active advocacy moments during the Leadership Summit, much as we did during Members Day. Some of you were in New York when they were having, we were able to either tweet or text advocacy messages to Nikki Haley, to our elected representatives, to the White House on our advocacy agenda. And we want to take our training and make sure they have a chance to acquire the tools if they don't already have it on their phone or their portable device, and then put it into use right away. So it is not theoretical, it's hands-on. Thoughts and comments on this?
I would just add that on Sunday morning at the Lutheran Church, I think that will be another moment that we could say we're on the Hill, we're looking forward to meeting with you or something like that.
You mean Tuesday?
Tuesday, yes, Tuesday.
Right.
Yep. And I would say we are looking for technical fixes at NED as well.
NEA.
We're willing, NEA, excuse me. We're willing to put some resources behind it.
If they're willing, there's probably a way to get a temporary Wi-Fi network brought in to that room.
Yes, our events team is exploring that option.
Yep. And if I don't know that I don't want to get off into the weeds of the Leadership Summit planning, but one of the ideas that we had floated was having an electronic agenda that people can have on their phone or their iPad or computer that they can follow an updated agenda that's not printed, that's actually electronic, that would really facilitate having these advocacy moments, because then they wouldn't have to type in the information. They just click on the link and run. Do you know if we're still thinking about that, Rachel?
Yes,
That...
on that, obviously we're going to have everything online that people can download and save to their iPads. But when it comes to up to date, I don't know, there are a lot of changes will happen as soon as the program begins. I am sitting in a meeting with our events team next week with our registration system to see if they have, new functions that we may be able to use when it comes to online agenda. So I'm going to sit in the meeting just to find out. Otherwise, if developing apps are very expensive, I mean, that would be my dream that we have an app, but here's some background noise. Unfortunately.
We'd have to use, we'd have to use something that's off the shelf. I certainly don't want to build an app.
So I'm going to have that discussion with our vendor next week, and I can report back to you, Mel.
Okay, that's all good. And I just can't believe all the work that you guys get done at the national office, and we are very grateful to you. The last remaining minutes we have are for final comments and questions and setting up our next advocacy call, which will probably be final planning for our webinars and any further updates on advocacy alerts. As we say advocacy alerts, Chris, do you have any idea when our next national advocacy alert will go out to all members?
It will be driven by what happens on the Hill or at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue from us. So unfortunately, I don't. They tend to be driven by the news cycle and events. But stay tuned, and thank you for all who have been taking action so far.
And I actually have one comment. We still have that petition, the one where you sign through Facebook. The goal of that is for us to be able to make some type of collateral that we can take on the Hill that gives a visualization of people across the country who are encouraging Congress to fully fund the UN.
Thank you. Trying to get people to take political action.
If someone can mute their line. And so it would be great if you continue to encourage members, families, friends to participate in that petition.
Yeah, I
think I'm glad. Go ahead, Mel.
Well, I think we're about to say the same thing. That's a great reminder and an obvious low-hanging fruit.
No, I think that first of all, between the registration numbers we have and some strategic outreach, our hope is to have basically all 50 states, if we're lucky, and darn close to it, even if we fall a little bit short, represented at our leadership summit. And the good thing about that petition is, although we cannot narrow down to who has signed down to the House district level, because that would require a zip code, we do have background as to what state people are from, and can actually create physical petitions that would show the faces of people from your state. Kind of using their spaces to create the UN logo itself. And then we would add all of the digital outreach that has gone to members of Congress from that state, from their own constituents within the state. There's going to be a physical document that gets dropped off at every Senate office. So having the right numbers so that we have as many faces as possible matters a lot. We're going to be using additional lists to try to push that out. But the biggest driver of our numbers are our chapters reaching out to their networks.
Excellent. The timing for our next conference call, let's see, 3 weeks from today would be, let me look, looks like would be the 18th, I believe. Does the 18th work for people?
Yeah, the 18th works for me. In Breslin, Colorado.
Great.
Same time?
If we don't have any pushback on that date, Rachel, does that afternoon/evening work for you at the same time, the 18th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think I'll just think out loud. I was walking through the briefing book as we were online, or as we were speaking today, and the graph on the support for UN page is really quite stunning, and I think it would make a great handout. Besides the current survey of support among U.S. voters, it should be a mandatory leave behind everywhere we go, and much of the discussion, whether it's peacekeeping or the SDGs or U.S. funding, is really up to the minute in the briefing book. So I'd like to suggest that we go in and make our advocacy resources basically copies of pieces of the briefing book. Which the briefing book itself is a little cumbersome because it's 66 pages long, but these pieces could be broken out, and we don't have to reinvent this wheel. So if I don't know if we have someone who's willing to volunteer, not just put this on the national staff who are already pretty well overloaded. If we have somebody who would be willing to go through and identify the advocacy resources currently on the website and sort of identify the pages that are the equivalent out of the briefing book. Anyone feel motivated to take on that job?
I'm home for a week. I could give you 4 days on it.
I think that would be a good 4 days. It won't take you 4 days, Jenny.
Jenny, if you just read it and you give us page numbers, we can go from there.
Oh yeah, okay, no worries, because I'm open next week, so I'll get on it this weekend, in between March.
Yeah.
I have a question, if I may, on the briefing book.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, it's Olga from Southern Illinois. I just wanted to ask, will there be anything on the briefing book that deals with UN reform? Some of the senators or congressmen who are not for the UN always throw this at us, that the UN needs to be reformed. Will there be some coverage on some reforms that have taken place?
Yeah, look at page 45, 46, 47.
The new one? Thank you.
And the subsequent section in there is about U.S. and Israel.
Oh, thank you.
The UN and Israel. It's excellent. So I'm trying to avoid reinventing the wheel. So I think this is, if we have good material we can use, we can excerpt it electronically and just make it the individual issues handouts.
Absolutely.
Mel, we really appreciate you for that.
Any final thoughts? We've got just a couple of minutes left before.
Can I ask one question for the good of the order that I would love to get some input from as staff? Yep. Rachel and I, as we mentioned, have just come back from another lobby day that one of our affiliated campaigns, Nothing But Nets, ran. We go on these lobby days all the time for other campaigns. So we spend a lot of time comparing what we do on the Hill when we're there in June, which I view as the premier lobby day of the year, and so does Kathy Calvin and the whole UN leadership team. But I also try to learn from others. And both UN Foundation lobby days that I've been on and others that I've seen out there on other causes, particularly in this activist age that we're part of, everybody's wearing a T-shirt. That's what's happening these days. I'm old school. I'm of the 20th century. I feel uncomfortable when I'm not wearing a suit at work, much less when I'm on the Hill. But when I'm out there, whether it's the one campaign, Bono's foreign assistance campaign, whether it's our Nothing But Nets folks or our Shot at Life folks, or even if it's, folks who are fighting against changes to the Affordable Care Act, everybody's got a T-shirt on. And everybody's asking each other what that T-shirt means, and it stimulates conversation with staffers on elevators and stuff like that. So Rachel, who's smarter than I am, threw out at our staff meeting today, should we be wearing T-shirts? Should our advocates be wearing T-shirts, all of us, at our lobby day? What we always do is we give people the little, UN USA flag pin, and some people see that if they're standing really close to you on the elevator, but they don't see it from 30 feet away. What's the good of the order on this call? Would folks feel comfortable if we had some sort of T-shirt with our UNA USA logo on it that states what it is that we stand for, even if that has to go over your Oxford shirt or just that and a pair of khakis, whatever you're most comfortable with? Would love to get some input.
Herb here. I think it's a great idea. I think people feel like they're on a team when they do that.
Hi, this is London from Detroit.
Yes.
Hi, yes, and I want to say I love the idea of the T-shirt. I'm actually a member of the One Campaign, and I've been to the Hill with our T-shirts, and we all do feel a sense of camaraderie and like we're on a team. And our shirts are very well recognized on the Hill and on the streets as we're walking. People do stop us, and it gives us a chance to give that elevator speech about one. So this would be great for the UNA as well.
Yeah, this is Veronica. No. I agree. Also, I feel it kind of sends a message that we're on a campaign. But also, I think it does attract people to you, even out there in every state. Having that T-shirt on allows people to engage with each other where maybe they wouldn't have communicated otherwise. I have a UN T-shirt that I wear, and I've gotten a lot of comments about it. So I definitely think it's a great idea.
I think this is Karen. I think it's an especially good idea if we include some clear UN identities. I don't know if we could afford to do all of the colors of the global goals donut circle, but that would get everyone's attention. And also, maybe we could make a little contest with some kind of date certain that turn in your ideas by the first week in June or something like that for what should be on the T-shirt, and there wouldn't be a cash award, but recognition at the Leadership Summit that Mel Boynton designed this T-shirt.
Excellent ideas.
I'm happy to wear a T-shirt. I've done both the dress up and the T-shirt. I've also have seen when we're lobbying that people in baseball caps, hate to say it, but baseball caps do get your attention.
I'm going to do a thumbs down on that one.
As long as they're not red.
Yeah, there you go.
Well said. Well said.
I understand the point of the group identity and everything. That's great with T-shirts, especially for our big group photo. But as someone who came into this very sort of new at Advocacy, I would still suggest that people dress for their in-district visits, because this is sort of a lifelong commitment to civic action, and sometimes it's important to bring business in a suit.
Right.
Right.
Actually,
I think and on Capitol Hill, we will recognize each other. We'll find each other because we're wearing the UN blue T-shirt.
Just FYI, next Tuesday, the National Capital Area Chapter is sponsoring the Global Classrooms and DC Model UN Conference, and we'll have 300 high school students from the metropolitan Washington area at the State Department all day.
More than that.
Yeah. That will, it's a good, awareness type program, and it's been one of our more successful ones, as Karen knows, who's been a big supporter of it over the years.
And one last thing, we will have a genuine lobby day on Tuesday with our DC campus chapters, and there are about 45 individuals signed up for it.
Well, Rachel, you might then be in a better position to identify somebody, or Anna, to identify somebody for the webinar.
Right.
Yes, please.
Cross that off my list.
One final thought. When we were in districting, the little pin with the 17 goal colors around the perimeter was a very popular item with staff, and we left one for each of the members, of course. They seem to be very popular. That may be transient, but I think it would be timely for the June meeting. I don't know if we can
I already ordered a lot of US-UN lapel pins.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
Good.
We'll hold
good.
that thought.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks to everyone. Yep, we're good. Yes. And thanks to everyone for taking this time. Rachel, how many people did we have on the call?
We had 17.
All right. That's a respectable showing. We'll hope for even more next time. And I see you've already sent out the schedule email. Yes. So thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And have a great evening.
Thank you, Mel.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.